intending target down. But in this case, these interceptors began to coincide with each other. They got within 2.5 seconds of each other in flight. And the first one hit the Scud missile dead center. And of course, the fratricide and the explosion, the energy there is almost unimaginable. And the second one was supposed to fly on by, but it hadn't had time to get the message. And so it picked out the biggest piece, which was a little over 1 meter long, and hit it. Now let me tell you, that kind of makes Mars work. That's something that is an accomplishment in America. And what it says, even though it's a technological achievement of the first magnitude, it says there's hope. You know, when people say that we can't ever find a defense against these missiles and ever make them obsolete, they're wrong. We can do that. We can do some other things. We're working with laser technology that is amazing. Laser travels at Mach 870,000 for you Air Force fans. And it is an amazing technology that we have, and it's very important that America, with all the challenges that we have, that we don't forget that government's first purpose is to protect its citizens and the national security of this nation.
Amen.
But as they say, it's usually the water on the inside of the ship that sinks it, isn't it? And that's my main discussion with you tonight, and then I'm going to touch on a couple of quick things, and then I want to throw it open for questions. We're going to have some people want to write questions, some people want to do it from the floor. We want to make sure everyone gets the chance to interact. I told you that some of the internal challenges that we face are of the greatest concern to me. I am concerned about the economic direction of this country. I'm concerned about the deficits that we're in. Our deficit this year is scheduled to be around $1.6 trillion. That is an absolute record of catastrophic proportions. And that will bring our debt to around $12 trillion as a nation. And that's what we have on the books. And I'm afraid there's some off the books that are hard to quantify, but let's just take that number, 12 trillion. And let's say that we stop the interest on that debt right now. And let's say that we didn't spend one more dollar in deficit. And let's say that we actually got real brave and decided to start paying that debt down at $1 million a day. That's a small thing for a country our size. But let me tell you, guess how long it would take us to pay that debt off at $1 million a day? It's 34,000 years, folks. Now that's a long time. In my investment, I don't even buy green bananas. So some of that went right over some of your head. But the reality is that we're not paying the debt off at $1 million a day. And we're not stopping that interest. That interest could mean as much as 20 to 25% of our total federal budget just to pay the interest on the debt. And if we looked at what's really happening, rather than paying it off $1 million a day, we're going into debt deeper at 2,000 times that much, at about $2 billion a day more. So I don't think you have to be an alarmist to be concerned about the debt. And I've said before, and I hope that I'm terribly wrong, and I absolutely not only hope, but I intend and believe that this country is going to change directions in that regard. Because if we don't, the debt that we have could be the central theme in America's economic obituary, and we cannot let that happen. I'm concerned about some of the spending and taxation in the country that just is absolutely unprecedented. But I also know that a lot of you came tonight because you wanted to talk a little bit about the health care reform. Now, I'm just going to be very open with you. I know that there's a mixed crowd here. I am adamantly, deeply committed to oppose a government takeover. I really am leaving. It's not going to get any better than that. That's great. Well, I'm glad to see you do that, because it's not always that. And there are a few people in here, I know that disagree with me on that. But let me just, if I could for a moment, tell you why. First of all, let's talk about the impact on us economically. It's about a $1 trillion additional amount of money that we'd be spending on this. And people say, well, it will save money. But let me say to you, if government taking over anything saves money, it will be the first time in history that ever happened. In every country in the world where they have universal government-controlled health care, in every last one of them, they have rationed, restricted health care for especially those people who need it the most many times. And that's not something that I want to see my family or yours have to deal with now or in the future. And I can give you a lot of other details about that, but let me tell you what the thing that bothers me most about it. It's this idea that somehow government can come in and tell your doctor or to tell you what care you can have or what you can't have and how it should be delivered. And it's the big hand of government coming in and taking your freedom away that bothers me the most. And I'm reminded of that. I'm reminded of a quote from Samuel Adams, and he was pretty strong, so understand that it's his fault, not mine, okay? When he was trying to get people to help to fight for freedom in that little unpleasantness with England called the Revolutionary War, he said to the people at that time, trying to get them to join him, he said, if you love wealth more than liberty, if you love the tranquility of servitude more than the animating contest of freedom, go home from us in peace. We seek not your counsel or your arms. Crouch down and lick the hands that feed you. Amen. May your chains sit lightly upon you, and may posterity forget that you are our country. Wow. Amen. See it? I know those sound like pretty words, but you understand the sacrifice that they made. You understand the night they crossed the Delaware, their code word was victory or death. They left blood in their tracks to be able to go back and fight the British in case this didn't seem like they had any hope at all. But they won their first victory, and after that they never lost another. But I guess the point I'm making is that they gave a profound sacrifice so that future generations can live in freedom. And I don't want to see that dream die, and that's why I'm going to fight things that take away the freedom of this generation and those to come. Amen. Amen. Now, there's a lot of other things that I could talk to you about. But let me thank you all for being here. We're going to throw it open for questions, but let me say one last very important thing to you. You know I'm a Republican, but I'm trying not to be a partisan here tonight. I'm going to tell you what I really believe. But let me say to you, I'm pretty outnumbered in Washington right now. There's this last couple of elections really did change things in a big way. And so I will tell you this, and I mean this with all my heart. You wonder how we're going to stop some disaster like nationalized health care. And then along come the American people. Amen. And you guys... And it has been a resurgence of the American people. It has been this incredibly significant outgrowth of the American people that come to events like this. We've had town halls for years. Most of the time I have 35 or 40 people. And about half of them don't like me. And so let me say to you that your voices, your commitment, and your courage is what's keeping this nation from diving over into the darkness right now. So with that, I'd like to throw open for questions. A guy right there put his hand up. Let's talk to him right first.
Mr. Franks, my name is Dave Mussoff. I am a retiree residing in Sun City. The current federal government administration thinks I'm a terrorist, astroturf, un-American, a fascist, part of a plot to suppress the town hall meeting process, i.e. democracy, and part of an angry mob hell-bent on the overthrow of the government. Contrary to that opinion, I am a registered Democrat, an independent voter, taxpayer, father, grandfather, independent thinker, and college graduate. For many decades, I have worked hard to support a family, my religious institution,